What's up, everybody? Welcome into Group Chat Sports. Remember to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you enjoy this content. We have transfer news, recruiting news, coaching movement in this crazy world of college football. So again, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Today, we're talking about Tennessee and their quarterback, Nico Iamaleava, on a little bit of some weird terms here. I guess this is what the new age of college football is. This is a guy who has been their quarterback and has gone this whole spring as their guy. And it looks like there's negotiations going on here.
Yeah, so let's quote the story from Pete Nakos. Tennessee and quarterback Nico Iamaleava, and that's probably the best I'll ever do, in active contract negotiations ahead of the 2025 season. It remains unclear if those negotiations will impact Nico's decision regarding the spring transfer portal, which opens next week. This is such a new age kind of college football story. So Nico got a ton of headlines in high school because he was the first one to sign that sort of mega contract for a high school quarterback with the 7 figures, with the 2 commas when it comes to NIL. And I think the shock here for me is when you look at Tennessee's offense, right? This year, Tennessee ranked in terms of passing yards per game. Look, it's always going to run the ball well. That is what this offense does, the pace they run at, the ability of the running backs they have. But there's a passing the football. We're talking about the quarterback here. 93rd in America passing yards per game, 204. And you might say, well, they run the ball a lot. They're not necessarily trying to throw the ball. But when you go back to the Hendon Hooker year, which was only 2 years ago, 312 yards a game, 9th in the country for Tennessee. So Tennessee's passing game has gone downhill since adding Nico. And look, we all know the talent. We all know the twitchiness, the ability to run, the whip-like arm, that kind of volleyball background, just the athleticism that he has. But in terms of production, I would say that Tennessee has not gotten the return on the original contract. So are these discussions for a raise or are these discussions for a pay cut?
Well, and I think that's the interesting thing is who leaked this information, right? Because it's coming from one or two sides. It's coming from Nico and his agent, and you see how it's worded from Pete Nakos saying, basically it's unclear if it's going to affect him entering the portal, meaning I guess we'll see what their offer is. This is if it's coming from the agent side, and if it's not what we want, then we're going to be headed to the portal. And if it was leaked by Tennessee, to me, this screams more Nico's side, right? I just understand how this goes, but I can't remember in the last year or so if there's been a public situation like this. Now, does this stuff go on behind closed doors? All the time? But I think very flatly, the way this is being reported is there's negotiations going on, and depending on if we can come to an agreement or not, he may or may not be here.
Yeah, and look, obviously I'm wearing this outfit. We cover the University of Miami, but I can tell you for a fact that when Miami needed a quarterback, people around Nico were reaching out to people around Miami saying, hey, he might jump in the portal. So, and that was buzz, I think, around other programs as well. So something here is just not right. It's not what you'd expect for a playoff quarterback who's always been, to me, overcompensated, right? Based on his prior performance, didn't play that much as a freshman. Then last year, talented, the team did well, but not what you would call someone who elevates the program at this stage in his career. You really were paying for potential. So if you said, all right, well, you paid him more up front because you want his potential down the road, then that makes sense because this guy's super talented. I don't want to be just diminishing what this guy can be. He's got a great arm. He's just twitched up. He's tall. He's tough. He's got a lot of attributes. But if you're paying for future performance before, then you're going to pay him more before he even gets that leap. Something just is not adding up here for a program in Tennessee, which is at a peak after 20 years of trying to get back, very similar to the University of Miami, quite frankly, trying to get back to this elite blue blood program, which people my age grew up with Tennessee being that kind of program. Now they're there. You have a coach and Coach Heupel who is absolutely, on fire. The whole athletic department with White, the AD, is just outstanding. The baseball, basketball. This is the peak of Tennessee sports. And then they have a situation like this with their starting quarterback coming off a playoff season. Something is weird here, and I can't put my finger on why this is not a more stable situation, because this is not something that you see with, I mean, I didn't see a story like this with Clay Klubnik. I didn't see a story like this with Arch Manning. I didn't see a story
I think
like
we
this.
kind of saw the story play out a bit with Carson Beck, maybe just not in these terms. And there were other factors in terms of his arm, the injury. He had the opportunity to go pro. So there was more stuff there, but I think maybe that's the closest thing we can say that's happened in terms of a high profile name.
Yeah, look, and Beck was a unique situation. Beck was in the portal already,
Right.
and Miami was very much in need of a quarterback. And look, I don't care about quarterbacks getting paid. I quite frankly think quarterbacks for a lot of times are underpaid. Cam Newton was underpaid when he was getting paid under the table by Auburn, but the timing of it and the fact that it's public for a situation that is healthy. I mean, Tennessee's program is in an extremely healthy place.
Well, and that kind of leads me into what I was going to say next. Let's speculate a little bit here. D, it would obviously be a huge domino if Nico were to become available on the market. So that the question then becomes possible landing spots, and that would obviously really change the dynamic of someone else's quarterback situation. But for Tennessee, looking at what they have on the roster, right? Not only two other quarterbacks on the roster. One of them, redshirt freshman Jake Merklinger from Savannah, Georgia at Calvary Day. And then the other true freshman, George McIntyre, we actually did a breakdown of him. We're big fans of McIntyre's game for the future, right? I don't know. I haven't seen enough on Merklinger, his first. I knew he was the third stringer last year, but I haven't seen enough in terms of reports from practice to know if they're excited about his potential. But you'd then have to think that Tennessee would be in the market for a high profile quarterback, and then that would affect someone else's spot because Tennessee is going to be going big game hunting if this becomes an available position.
Yeah, and look, could they get an upgrade? I mean, Tennessee, when you look at them last year, they were an outstanding ball club. I mean, their defense was off the charts. Their front was electric, a dominant front in the SEC. They had one of the best running games in the country, one of the best running backs in the country. So it's not like this was a situation that people were running away from. If I'm a quarterback, I would love to play in Tennessee, right? Give me the keys to this team. I could, in my eyes, I'm a great quarterback. I'm saying I could take it further than Nico did. I can do better than 92nd in the country in passing. Now, again, that's him as a sophomore. We don't know if he's going to take another leap this coming season, but very, very strange to me. And the fundamental question I have is that number going up or is that number coming down? Because in my view, that number should either be staying the same or coming down. If I'm paying more for Nico, and maybe look, I don't know if Tennessee's upset that Nico is asking for more money. Maybe they're leaking it to turn the fans against him, and then they upgrade him, and that's kind of conspiracy theory here. But if I'm a Tennessee fan, I see this, I am not exactly loving what I'm hearing from my starting quarterback, who's been compensated very, very well. And I'm saying, man, I mean, what quarterback? You don't think John Mateer in this offense for a similar price tag could have been doing more damage or as much damage as Nico did? I'd love to see. Imagine John Mateer in this fast-paced offense. That's pretty exciting. Guys like that, you could see doing more than maybe what you got last year from Nico. And there's pieces to replace with. Man, Tennessee's recruiting so well. They just landed David Sanders. He's on campus, one of the best young offensive linemen in America. Number 5-star, number 1 offensive lineman last year in high school. So this is a program that is, and just an athletic department that is hitting on all cylinders.
I mean, that's why I think they kind of hold the power in this situation in a sense. It would be a very desirable destination for a lot of quarterbacks out there.
No question about it. And I think this athletic department, if you are looking at this, you're saying, do we want to set a precedent where players are renegotiating for more money, even if they're not playing that well, right? Just because they have a name that people recognize or they play an important position. Because if this is enough to get a raise, what happens when he has a Hendon Hooker-like season? What would Hendon Hooker be worth when he's a top 10 passing game, one of the best quarterbacks in the country? Obviously, he ran out of eligibility. But a season like that, what's that worth? So just a puzzling move from a puzzling situation that I'm very curious. Tennessee fans are a pretty vocal bunch. Remember when Greg Schiano was hired and they got that one taken care of? They're a very opinionated bunch, very passionate fan base, a prestigious, just awesome program. Very curious what they do with this whole thing.
Yep, without a doubt. I'll have you covered. There's going to be a resolution here one way or another, and you'd imagine in the next few days here, because these situations don't tend to drag out very long. I think one side or the other is going to get pretty tired with each other if they don't get pretty close to where they want to be. So we'll see what happens here. We'll keep you updated on Group Chat Sports. Hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Thank you all for watching today.